Welcome, everyone. We are back with another live, and we're going to be talking to Dan Keefe from We Are Social. We're going to be talking a little bit about, we're going to be having a Q&A, and we're going to be talking a little bit about We Are Social. If you're just joining, hello, hello, hello. We're going to be talking to Dan Keefe from We Are Social. We're going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A, so everyone who's joining, make sure you have your questions ready because we are going to be talking to the head of We Are Social Studio. First content, as We Are Social Studios is a social agency that is working all over the world with different brands like Adidas, brands like, basically global brands. But what I want to do is jump straight in. I'm just going to invite Dan in. Oh, they're in the chat. Amazing. So yeah, just as a reminder, any questions you guys have, I've got a load of questions listed up. But as this is a Q&A with Dan, I want to make sure that everybody's getting their questions in. Any burning questions that you guys have. And I'm just going to invite them in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Anyone just joining, we're going to be talking to Dan from We Are Social. And we're just going to be having a little bit of a Q&A talking to him. Just getting him in now. There we are. Hello.
Curtis, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thanks. Nice to speak to you.
Likewise. I want to jump straight in and essentially get to the list of questions that I have. I would say, like, what I want to sort of ask is, in your words, like, what is We Are Social Studios? Like, what do you guys kind of stand by? Because I know that you have a kind of a statement of shortening the distance between brands and content and culture. I just want you to sort of talk a little bit about that and kind of like the kind of ethos behind you guys and like what you guys stand by.
Yeah, so We Are Social Studios is fundamentally the production department of We Are Social, but because it's born inside a social agency in the modern world, in the era of social media, it's structured slightly differently. So the sort of more traditional model of agency and then production company and triple bids and all the rest of it, which is so useful for producing TV commercials and that kind of thing, don't really work so well when you've just got much higher volume of work, much smaller budgets. You need to bring everything closer together. So that's what we mean by shortening the distance. You know, kind of the distance between brief and execution is much smaller, and the setup has to reflect that. So what that means in practical terms is that our production department isn't like agency producers and then some external production companies and then an in-house production company maybe and all the other departments. It's very integrated. It's just a relatively small team of producers who all are hands-on line producers, can switch into being agency style producers if they need to be, but are just really versatile. And for the most part, we bring in directors into our team and work very directly with them and the creatives to produce the work.
Okay, so if you talk to me a little bit about the kind of directors that you guys bring in, are you, when it comes to how you find your directors, because you've probably got a lot of like directors that are watching or will watch this that are like, okay, how do we get involved with We Are Social? Like, what kind of directors do you guys look for? Are you are you mainly, I guess, because you're social, are you mainly looking for directors that deal with only social, or do you kind of like look around and see and adapt, or what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so there's a range for sure. And it goes from more like commercial directors, could be TVC or it could be the kind of higher end of social, through to um, more like social first directors who might have a bit more of a kind of loose, scrappy, more authentic, people oriented approach. It's less about kind of storyboarding, very structured, very. This is oversimplification as well because obviously there's so many nuances in the briefs, but
Mm,
that's definitely a kind of type as well. Going all the way through to nowadays people who are content creators in their own right may be in front of the camera or behind the camera. Sometimes those content creators almost become like their own production companies,
Right.
depending on the kind of thing that they make. So it's much more varied. There's definitely a personality type that works well. I think that the old-fashioned um, kind of like production company assisted type of director is finds it harder in this environment than someone who's kind of a self-starter. And I find that a lot of emerging directors these days are really kind of like amazingly self-starting. They almost have their own personal brand. They are very happy to kind of manage their own diaries and process and speak for themselves and kind of yeah, they all almost like mini brands in themselves sometimes. And I think that works really well because you do come into different environments each time you do a job. So say you're doing a job with us, you might go somewhere else next minute. It's a really exciting new world to be able to work in all these different ways, but it does require a kind of a confidence and a self-assuredness to be able to go into all those environments, understand briefs, communicate that you've understood it, have some kind of a response of your own, and just there's a bit of a sales job to it as well. You know,
Mm.
you are there selling yourself and presenting yourself in such a way that people understand. Okay, cool. This person is going to be a great person to work with on this project. They understand what we're asking of them, and typically, what we're asking is a lot less than a really complex job that requires a very long treatment writing process. So it works, you know. There's a certain type of director that wants to work in that way.
I just wanted to, because also from what you're saying, it sounds like it's a job that requires quite a lot of like flexibility, though it's not kind of you're not making a feature film, but at the same time, it's going to require quite a lot of flexibility, whether it's you being in front of the camera or behind the camera, depending on what kind of creative or director you're bringing on. In terms of the process, what would that normally look like for a director if you've brought them on? Because I'm quite intrigued at like, because obviously we're talking a little bit about how it's shifted from traditional. What does it look like? Say, for example, I'm a director, I've reached out and I've been like, hey, I really want to work on this next campaign. We've talked. Like, what does that look like now?
So the process is really different on every project, and it's kind of determined by the project itself. But there are definitely some categories that they tend to fall into. So to give some more specific examples, it could be something that is very traditional. It could be the triple bid. We might be working with three external production companies. If it's just something that's much bigger than what we normally take on, or feels like it needs something very specialist, then that might be the process. It might be something that resembles that, but is more in house. So we might triple bid directors internally, all through We Are Social Studios as the production company. Within that, there could be multiple variations. It could just be like meetings. You know, we might just have meetings with three people and decide who we think would be right for the job. It might involve writing something extensive. Might involve writing something that's just a quick one pager. Might be something very specific to the job that we want to ascertain whether that person understands and can respond to. It might be, if timings dictate, a single bid situation where we just go, okay, we're going to bring this person in. We think they're right for the job. They might be single bid through the production team, or they might be single bid through the creatives first approving that that person is going to be single bid. You know, so it really depends on the level of complexity of the work, the style of work that we're creating, the timings, the budget. So, I mean, that's in a sense not very helpful for people because you could just say, well, I don't know what I'm preparing for exactly. But I think that the thing that's really important is to also be flexible yourself, know what you are and aren't prepared to do or willing to do or want to do.
Mm.
And also, the thing that I think I was thinking about in advance of this conversation in terms of what people can actually do about it in the meantime while they're trying to get more work is just to understand what type of director you are. So I think in the old days it might have been about genre. Like I'm a car director,
Mm.
I'm a comedy director, and that kind of world exists still for sure. It's huge, and you know lots of people have an incredible living doing that. But it's a smaller piece of the overall pie that each year that passes, and it's not really the area that we operate in, particularly at We Are Social and other social agencies, or even social parts of bigger agencies or above the line agencies. So instead of that, now I think it's more about what makes me what what makes my heart sing, to use a slightly cheesy phrase, what's the bit of it that I really care about? Because
Mm,
that's the thing that in the meeting, in a treatment, is going to come across. And you might still get jobs in other areas as well, and you want to kind of get your hands on as much as you can for the most part, but kind of understanding how to sell yourself, how to position yourself really is the right word. So that when you come in, people go, ah, right, okay, that's the kind of thing that we're looking for this job. That means that the jobs that you do end up working on, you're going to be better suited to, you can do a better job of, they're more likely to go in your reel and all the rest of it. So, and you'd be surprised how many snap decisions are made on very small details on a website, let's say,
mm.
or a reel or a meeting even.
I want to actually just dive quickly a little deeper into that and to the personal branding. Just as also as a reminder for anyone watching, please send in questions in the chat if you have any burning questions for Dan. Just because there's no such thing as a silly question. Ask now. This is a golden opportunity. Um, well, obviously, personal branding is important, but what are the key things? Because I want to dive into what you just talking about. But what are the key things that you would say that that you common mistakes that you see with personal branding? How important is it? Do you ever hire a director just for personal branding? Like for example, if they are a well-known sort of I don't know, like creative, are you hiring them based on that sort of that metric, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, in a way, the phrase personal brand is gross, like it's horrible. And I sort of hate the idea of it. But I still end up talking about it a bit because I guess what I mean by it is just understanding who you are on a very authentic level.
Mm,
Because these projects can be very intense, it's a very
mm,
close working relationship. And so the more you understand who you are, what environment you work well in, what kind of work you're naturally suited to, the more likely you are to find that work, right? So the thing about, I remember thinking years ago that it would start to become a thing where creatives might say, "Oh, how many followers does this person have on Instagram?" At the time, it would have been TikTok or whatever, but that never really happened. I don't think that's really a thing that happens. Maybe it happens some places, but unless we're paying for their in terms of the media spend for it to actually be put on their channel, maybe they're more of an influencer. I don't think that matters at all to people. What really matters is that the person understands what we're trying to achieve, has some credentials in that area, whether it's actual experience doing it before or kind of it might be quite culture based as well. We do
mm,
a lot of work in things that are talking about certain cultures. It might be that it's just really well connected in that culture. So therefore, that's a massive head start because you understand the nuances, you understand the people, you understand, there might be a casting element where you can get hold of people really quickly and easily that might have been difficult for somebody who's just clueless about that culture.
mm,
So there's lots of ways in which you can kind of display this level of authenticity and passion as well for subjects and filmmaking. But it's also about production values. So to give you a much more specific example, at the moment we're trying to find a director for a job where we actively don't want someone who's more of a commercials director because the style of the work has to be much more loose, conversational,
mm,
natural feeling. Anyone who's going to want to set up a shot in a too particular a way, or it is going to get really frustrated, and we don't have much time at all. And it's with a big name sports star as well, so it's a high profile project.
mm,
But the fact that it's high profile isn't related to the production values. So the
mm,
production values can be what you might technically term as low production values, but we're actively looking for someone who knows how to work in that way. We'll bring in the right crew to work in that way. We'll speak to the talent in that way. So all different backgrounds, all different ways of approaching the work will give you access to great briefs and really interesting projects. I think that old way of thinking of kind of like TV ad, that's where the great stuff is, and then everything below that gets progressively less interesting, is kind of not really fit for purpose anymore.
mm. It's so interesting you say that because I think that's a lot of filmmakers kind of like reality check. Is that no, it's there's no sort of hierarchy of quality. It's all quality, but it's for fit for purpose. So the media needs to be
Right.
fit for purpose. And as you said, like TV ads have their place that exists, but also social exists and it is significant and it has its place and it has its influence. Um, and also, I just want to highlight that you said that you are currently looking for a director. So anyone in the chat, and going into that, um, going into that, what is something you're looking for? So, say for example, like you've got someone in the chat that's like listening now, and they're like, "Oh, that job sounds kind of interesting." What are you directly looking for when you like? Well, I'm talking like you jump off this chat, someone sends you like, is it an email you're looking for? Is it like an Instagram page, a website? You've mentioned obviously have everything up to date. Do they need to be, I don't know, cut down of reels? Like, what does that look like for you in terms of We Are Social?
Yeah, so I think that's the foundation of it is the thing I spoke about at the beginning is understanding the area that you want to work in, the type of work you want to create. Because without that, you're just basing it in nothing. You know, you're not anchored to anything. So I get a lot of people saying to me, how do I present my work in a way that gets me more work for social? But fundamentally, their work often will be like really cinematic, all
Mm,
in 16 by 9. It's like if you want to get that stuff because you need to earn more money, that's totally understandable. But in reality, I think you've got to think, are you ever going to win against somebody else whose work is really passionately and deliberately in social,
mm.
where all of their work is nice? I mean, that's a reductive way of framing it in a way, but
But I
it's
get what
true.
you mean. It's
You
like
know,
it's
like
intentionally shot that way, rather
yeah,
than it being like, okay, I'm doing this because like I just, as you said, I just want to get work in this particular area. So I'm just gonna kind of half-ass it and kind of
yeah,
be like, yeah. Instead of someone going, oh no, we're shooting 16 by 9. This is social. We understand the platform. Let's go.
yeah, exactly. Like, and you have to have a personal passion for that kind of work to want to
Mm,
create loads of it. Because I think if you're doing something that is, and this, by the way, I'm not saying that any particular way of approaching the work is right or wrong, and
mm,
we kind of need each of these different types of director at different times. We do those kind of like bigger, glossier campaigns, and we do all kinds of things. But I think if you are presenting yourself as something that you're not naturally, you're basically going to get jobs where people kind of know you and go, yeah, that person will definitely be able to do a great job of this. But you would have got those anyway. And I think
mm.
that the ones the projects that are really going to sing are the ones where you're kind of presenting a style of work that you just believe in. Like you think it's great, you think it's funny, you think it's entertaining to watch. You may be obsessed with cinematography and say all your stuff is really beautiful. Whatever it is, your thing, then just really base it around that. I used to tell people to kind of put stuff in different aspect ratios, and I just don't, I'm not sure convinced that it's actually great advice. I think you need to kind of work out what your niche is, and then understand who's making that work, develop a relationship with them. Don't be afraid to email them, come into their office and see them, have meetings with them, and just understand the framework of what's being made in the media landscape and where
Mm.
you fit into that.
It's so funny you're saying that because it kind of almost sounds like really and truly before even, as you've already said, but before you even decided to contact anyone, understand what you're offering first because it might not be for what you're actually applying for because you might sit down and go, okay, like I want to work with you guys. I want to do this thing. Oh, great, 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 great. They're looking for someone who does X. Do you even enjoy X? Like I get it's a job, but like do you even enjoy
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
No? Okay.
because if you come in and your thing is not the thing that we're looking for this project, it might be the
Mm,
thing that we're looking for on the next project.
mm,
And even we don't know what that is. And styles change all the time, and platform dominance changes all the time. So yeah, I think that it's like imagine you're a business. You have to understand what your product is that you're selling before you come in. And if your sales pitch is, "Hey, I can just do whatever you need me to do," that's not a very compelling sales pitch compared to, "Hey, I'm really passionate about this specific area or this range of areas of production, and I've done loads of stuff like this and like that, and there's a whole other area I'd love to get into like this," which is also, a pretty compelling sales technique. If I know someone's desperate to do a certain kind of thing because they love it and they can
mm.
demonstrate that they love it, then I'm very willing to take a chance on that person. Versus the kind of like, I'm just trying to like reformat what I've already done in a way to trick you into hiring me for any job that you've got. It's like, it's a flooded market and there's a lot of competition. So just being very clear about what it is that you're offering is probably quite important.
Mm. On that topic, away from kind of, I guess, because we've already kind of covered the, knowing who you are, knowing what you're offering, what do you wish you saw more of from directors reaching out to you? So, okay, they've got their website together, they know what the brand is. What are like the nitty gritty things that you're like, okay, this, it could even be creative things,
Yeah.
like what is it you're kind of hungry to kind of like see?
Three things come to mind that directors really underestimate that they need to do well. So the first one is the meeting. That meeting is like make or break. And sometimes I see people who I know I've said this before in other shiny things, I think. So ignore me if you already heard this bit of advice. But it's really important because people come in who are brilliant at directing. Like I know they can do it really well, and they just they're like, yeah, no, that sounds cool. Yeah, yeah, I could do that definitely. Yeah, it sounds good. Okay, it's like this isn't just you determining whether you can do the job. This is
Mm,
there's something deeper going on here. We're establishing a relationship
mm,
and work out what's this going to be like if we work with you for the next 6 weeks. And if it's like this, then it'll be okay. It'll be fine. It'll be an all right process.
mm,
But if there's a bit of going back and forth on ideas, if there's just concepts, even if you just don't really understand the brief fully and you just want to ask a lot of
mm,
questions, that shows somebody who's engaged, who's
mm,
really thinking about it already, who you can work with basically. So that's someone you can work with. So as a creative director or creative or even a producer, you're kind of it feels like you're already starting the process of working together. That's great. If I come out of a meeting and it's been like that, I think, okay, this person's got a really good shot of getting this job. If it's just like I'm ticking boxes, like going, okay, yeah, I understand that, that's cool. Then it's like we haven't established anything, you know?
and they've got nothing, you've got nothing from them. It's kind of, I get what you mean in that sense of like, it's essentially an interview, really and truly. Like
Yeah,
it's okay, like, do you understand creatively where I'm at? Because I need you to kind of not repeat back, but I don't know, whenever I'm in conversation, it's kind of like you want sort of like a gift and exchange. Like you've just gifted the information of like,
right.
this is what it is. And then they can kind of exchange and go, oh, I understand. And I've got this as a reference. What do you think of this? And it
Yeah,
becomes that kind of synergy conversation.
totally. And just like an interview, it's a two-way thing as well,
Mm,
which can give you confidence going into it, where you're like, I need to know if I can work with these people.
exactly.
And if I said something that I thought was incredible and would really elevate the idea, and they would just be like, then maybe it's not the right fit for me,
Mm,
and that's fine too. So it's better to establish that up front. So yeah, bring as much of yourself to that meeting as you can. Understand that it's a pitch really. Um, the second one is performance. Performance of anyone on screen, whether they be actors, real people, influencers. That's the one area that nobody else is doing. So a lot of being a director is about collaboration, working with people. You have all your specialists in all the different departments, all the heads of
mm,
departments. But really, you're the only person who's going to get that performance out of that person.
mm,
And I think sometimes people underestimate that. And so often you work on something where everything's just great. It's all exactly as it was in the treatment, and the performances are okay. And it's like that is the one thing that I care about, really. Like
mm,
most of those other things could go slightly wrong. If the performance was amazing, people would still find it to be a much more compelling piece of work
mm,
than the one where all the other things where you're relying on all those other people around you um, are nailed on. But the thing that really matters, the thing that only you can do, isn't quite there. And I'm really always amazed at how undervalued that is from directors, and how much they talk about it in those meetings, how much they talk about it in their treatments, and how they do it on set as well.
mm.
So I think that can help you stand out from the crowd for sure. And I had a third one, which I can't remember. But I try and I try and
We'll
remember
try
it.
and loop it back. But
Yeah,
it's so funny because the things that you've mentioned have actually like it's so funny because we talk about this kind of social, kind of new age, kind of social content, but it still has very traditionalist like values in the sense of it's about performance, it is about the meeting, and those things have always kind of been true, which I'm glad you've mentioned because I think with the landscape changing, it's still staying the same. Like we still care about how we come across, we still care about creative synergy, we still care about those things. It's just you've just flipped the camera around and the format that you're appealing to is just slightly changed. Like it's social. It's not as I guess the production value isn't like blockbuster movie, but everything that stands in those areas is still important. So you still have to follow through. It's not like it's social. Let's just be chill. So it's interesting you're saying that because it's like it may have changed, but the job is still the job.
Yeah, and you got to remember that some of these projects will be seen by far more people than a
Mm,
TV ad. Some of them will be career-defining pieces for some of the people who are behind them, things they've been working on for months or years. So they're hugely important bits of work, regardless of whether they're on TikTok or TV
mm.
screen. I still can't remember my third thing.
I was literally looking at you, as like, do you
He hasn't got it. No,
remember?
it's gone.
I want to sort of just ask the chat if they have any questions because we're rounding off to nearest the end. Um, but yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm gonna draw from one of my questions because I've listed so many. But I also just want to do a little recap of like of what we've talked about because I think that to be honest, I think this has been a perfect snapshot of just like the era that we're in, and I think a lot of directors need to hear it, which is like be intentional with this platform. If you are going after We Are Social Studios. Understand social and understand if it's what you want to be doing as we've as you've spoken about and knowing your brand and knowing what you want to do because without that it's like you've turned up at someone's door uh with nothing to offer.
Yeah, totally. I remember my third thing.
Perfect timing. That's perfect timing. Let's go, let's hear it.
So the other thing is communication on set.
Okay.
This is like a kind of an old school head kind of bit of advice that you would get, I think, from like a really experienced director that sometimes gets missed, I think, by young people. That if you can master it, will get you return work. I think you'll get repeat work from doing this. The whole thing about explaining to the client and the agency what you're about to do and then recapping what you've just done. Just taking 5-10 minutes to do that before you shoot something, just after you shot something, is so important. And it's so important for the culture on set because it doesn't create that us and them thing that can so quickly crystallize if left unchecked right at the beginning. It just eliminates loads of work for a ton of people because they might not realize it, but there's a whole bunch of people sat there taking questions from clients, not necessarily knowing the answers, going, okay, yeah, we'll just check with them when they're ready to talk to us, um, and then having that moment where someone comes over and just reassures a bunch of people, it calms everyone down. It eliminates a bunch of questions that have just been asked or were about to be asked because they already get it, they know what's going on,
Mm,
and it just creates a really good atmosphere on set. And the difference is enormous. Like it's such a simple thing that you can do that means all the agency, all of the clients will go away and the producer going, loved working with that person. That was great. However else the shoot went, they were really trying their hardest. They really understood what they were doing
mm,
and they were able to articulate in a way that made everyone feel included, involved, had an opportunity to feedback or comment on it. So, I mean, lots of people might be watching this going, yeah, obviously, we do that all the time, but maybe some people are watching going, oh, I never actually do that.
But I
Start
think it's
doing
good
that.
to I think it's good you mention it because I think it's something to always keep in mind, even if it's like because sometimes you might know it, but doing it is a different story. And even if it is that extra, oh right, I need to do that thing. It's the difference between 10 minutes of people on set not knowing what's happening, and you're like, and that 10 minutes could have been spent doing something. So I think it's just
Mm.
it might be a simple one, but it's like one of the most important ones.
Exactly, yeah. I think these are all things that can just make your life easier while you're going about the important business of actually directing the shoot. You know, it's a shame to do all that brilliantly, but make your life harder by not just doing these little check-ins and just making sure everyone's okay.
Hmm. We did have one question, which is if a director comes from a fiction world, how is that seen in commercial world? And when you seek directors, so how is that seen if they come from a fiction world?
Yeah, it's about thinking of where the overlap is, and I think it depends what kind of fiction world we're talking about. But I think there's probably, if anything, slightly less overlap with social than there is with more like a TVC type of creative. it can actually be going on any format. But that kind of world where you're casting actors and you're storyboarding a scene that has a beginning, middle, and end that tells a story and the rest of it. That's pretty transferable. I think the thing that the hurdle that you'll have to overcome is showing that you can do that in a really condensed form. So you can tell a story in half an hour. Can you tell a story in 30 seconds? That's the thing you'd have to kind of work out how to prove to people, how to talk about. In terms of social, I feel like social. It really depends on the platform norms, the sort of fashions for content at that given time. But we do make stuff that is more constructed and kind of fiction based, but it's less common, I think. So you'd have to think about how, if you were almost building like a separate arm to your personal business, you've got like your fiction side of the business, and then the other side is you're going to move into social production. How to start doing that? And the good thing about it is, I suppose, you could actually just start making stuff. That's the great thing about having lower production values is you can just make things yourself. If you are kind of someone who has access to kit and that might be one way to approach it. But again, it goes back to that original thing of like, is that actually what you want to do? Is that something that you feel like you could really thrive in? And if so, what area of it, what work have you seen that you think, oh, actually, I'd love to be making stuff like that. It looks brilliant. So yeah.
Dan, thank you so, so much for coming on and chatting with us and dropping these gems because I feel like they're just needed. Anyone watching who's just joining now, this will be available on the Shiny Instagram and also be on the platform. Dan, thank you so much and good
Pleasure.
luck with everything.
Thank you. Nice
And
to meet you.
yeah, take care.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.